Hello, we are the communicators, and today we were assigned with area and perimeter. In this video, we will be defining what they are, giving examples of what they look like, and how they can be used in the real world. So let's get started. First, let's define what area is. Area is just how much space is inside of a flat shape. It basically tells you how much surface area something covers, and we measure it in square units. So for example, if you have a rectangle, then you would multiply the length times the width. But as you get into more different shapes or polygons, then the formulas can get a little bit more complicated, but it's still the basic idea of length times width. So if you have a triangle, it will be half the base times the height. And in the sense of area, it does come up in a lot of real life, like figuring out, for say, if you need to know how much you need to paint for a wall or how much paint you need to get for the wall and how big a room is for carpet. So basically, area helps you understand measure of space.
Perimeter is the total distance around the outside of a shape. To find it, you add up all the lengths of all the sides. So instead of looking at the space inside, you're only focusing on the edges. For example, if you have a rectangle, you would add up all four sides together. If two sides are longer and two are shorter, you still add each one to get the total distance around the shape. A simple way to think about perimeter is like putting a fence around something, like a yard or a tennis court. The total length of the fence would represent the perimeter. Perimeter is useful in real life whenever you need to measure boundaries or edges, especially in construction, sports, or design. Next, we'll go in more depth with formulas and example of how to calculate perimeter.
So this is just a super simple example of how to calculate area. It's length times width, but this varies depending on the shape. So right here, we just have a simple rectangle. So its length is 4 inches and its width is 3 inches. So we just multiply that together and you get 12 inches squared. This is super, super basic, but if you were to do this for different shapes, maybe if you need to do a triangle, you would have to incorporate division. So it would be base times height divided by 2 or length times width, either one. Or if you want to do something like a trapezoid, it would be a bit more complicated as well. You have to add addition in there as well, and then division to get the right answer. So this just depends on the shape. You could also have combination shapes. So if you need to find the surface area of something that's three-dimensional or anything like that with a ton of shapes that are together, like trapezoids, triangles, squares, rectangles, you would have to use all of those different formulas and add them together. So this can get a lot more complicated than just the basic length times width. So you have to remember what shapes you're dealing with and what you need to do for every single one of those shapes. Another thing that's important is area is always given in inches squared as the units. For perimeter, you don't have to do this because it's just a flat measurement, but for area, it's always going to be inches squared.
Perimeter is the sum of all the sides' lengths. So it's like the fence around the yard of a shape, basically. So in order to solve this problem, we see that the dimensions are 4 inches by 3 inches. So to do that, the equation would be 2 times length plus 2 times width. So if we plug in the dimensions, up here you can see it's 2 times 4 plus 2 times 3. And if you add that together, it would be 8 plus 6, because 4 times 2 is 8, and 2 times 3 is 6. And that gives you 14 inches. So that means that the perimeter of this shape is 14 inches.
I chose these sources for perimeter and area as my references because they are the two most functional concepts in geometry and help explain how we measure shapes in different ways. Perimeter focuses on the distance around a shape, which is useful in real life situations like fencing in a yard or outlining a space. On the other hand, area measures the amount of space inside a shape, which is important for understanding how much surface something covers, like flooring or land size. By using both these sources, I was able to clearly show the difference between measuring the boundary of an object versus measuring the shape it contains. Together, they provide a complete understanding of how shapes are measured and both concepts are important in math and everyday life.